We're COMP1011, which is Advanced Object-Oriented Programming. This is week 2, lesson 2, part 1. And I just want to talk about what we did last week. So last week we kind of created a couple things. We have our player project, if you will, right? And inside here, inside the default package, I have a couple of classes. One of them is the player class, which includes our main method that runs everything. So here's our main method. And then outside of that, in its own separate file, but inside the same package, which is the same namespace. So think about package as a folder or a namespace, right? Inside the same namespace, you have a person class, right, that we created. And the person class has a couple of methods. He has a couple of getter and setter methods. One of them is get height. Another one is set height. That are public void methods. A constructor, which is the same, it uses the same name as the class. Just a review, right? That basically in the constructor we look for the name as a string, a weight of the person as a float, and height as a float. Okay, so weight, height. And we have a couple of other methods, utility methods, that make him do something. So one of them is he walks, and another one is he eats. I say he because we have no girls in the class, so we can safely say he, right, in this particular class. So walks and eats, that's what they do. And that's what the person class is. And this person, of course, is not instantiated here. I remember we talked about classes and objects. First, we define the class, and then we use the class here. And here is where we define two objects for the person class. One of them is Tom, hello. And another one is Mike. We just made another random person, right? And we kind of passed in a couple of other floating point objects in here for weight and height. If I was going to do it again, if I was going to use another person, I can reuse. This is the great thing about classes. They're reusable code that I can call over and over again. So I can say person Matt, because Matt's new, right? I'll say new person, and we'll say the name. He'll give him a name, right? And again, then if I want to look and see what he requires, and if I press, I'm not wrong, on the Mac it's control space. It'll give me the signature of the person, right? So I see that I need a weight and a height. So let's say Matt looks like he's probably about 190. I say.
Thanks.
I'm saying. I don't know. Is that good? Is that low? And let's say his height is about 6 feet. Let's just say, right? So again, I use the F to kind of indicate that it's a floating point number. If you remember, we need the F. If we don't put the F there, it assumes double, right? Anytime you have a value, right? As an example, if I put 190.9 and 6.1 or whatever in there, it'll assume automatically that we require that it's a double unless we put the F next to it to indicate that it's a float, right? And again, I want to do Mike or Matt, sorry, dot, and it pulls up all the methods. And with code hinting, I can do different things with it. And if you notice, he walks, right? And he can also eat. Let's make him eat because he says he's light, right? And then when we run everything, right? If everything goes well, we've done things correctly. Inside on the console here, right? Matt gained some weight now, right? Matt weighs 229. And if you notice, I've got a bunch of different digits here, which we have to explore because we haven't formatted the string that we've pushed out to the console, right? Again, just a review. So again, we have a couple classes, right? One is the main class, which is a static class that is basically the class that we enter when we run. It's kind of our entry point when we run Java. And then the other class, which is the person class that we use when we're kicking off, other options for the person. We're actually creating a separate class, and we're instantiating some objects from that class to make it go. Okay, that's pretty cool. let us create a new project now. We'll just do another one, and this one here is COMP1011 lesson 1. That's the project. I'm gonna make another one. I'm gonna call it COMP1011 lesson 2. So I'm gonna go File, New, Java project. We'll call COMP1011 lesson 2. Right? We'll house everything in there for today. Right? And if you notice, it says I'm already connected to Git, and I don't want to disappoint anybody, so we're going to show you to connect to Git again, right? Just cause. All right. So the first thing is when we do the Git thing is we have to go up online, go to GitHub, and over in GitHub, if I'm connected properly. Oh yeah, I got all kinds of pulls today from this stuff. I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository, and we're going to call it COMP1011, and it's lesson 2. Okay, here it is. And of course, I get this URI that I need to use when I create my project. So I'm going to leave that there for a second. Here I am in Eclipse. I don't have anything in here, right, in my Eclipse. And today it's going to be all about inheritance, right? Today we're going to hit that subject, right? So here I am with my source file, right? And if you notice, I have my system library. I don't want to touch that. But here in my source, my src folder, I'm going to right-click and go New Class. My class is going to ask me for a package, and if I want to put it in, I can put in a non-default package. Right, my default package is called default, and I'll leave it like that for now. We don't want to confuse anybody, right? And it asks me a couple things. What's the name of my class today, right? Well, today I want to create a hero class. What the hell, right? We'll make a couple things actually, because we're going to inherit. Actually, what I'm going to do is my main class is going to be called, we'll call it, because today is Thursday, we'll call it Thursday, right? We can call it whatever we want. Notice I'm using the capital T for Thursday, right? Why? Convention tells us we have to use upper camel case for classes, all right? That's what we want to do. And if you notice the superclass, the class that it inherits from, and by the way, you can choose any other class to inherit from, and we'll talk about that today. The superclass is this java.lang.object super duper class, way up there, that we're going to inherit all the objects and all the methods from. Okay? Now there's a couple of options here in Eclipse. One of them is, which method stubs would you like to create? Right? Last week we just did this void main, which is our main static class that runs every time the program is we kick it off, right? We can also take constructors from the superclass if we need to. I'm going to leave that out. And we could also put in inherited abstract methods, which we could leave in. But I'm going to leave that one out too. Okay? And it says, do you want to add comments? Configure templates and default values here. Because you can actually create comments so that it can kind of comment your code and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to leave all this stuff blank for now. We're going to get to that eventually.
You in the comments?
Yeah. Leave it over. If you want to, you can turn it on, but it's not really necessary. Press finish. So finish, what it does, it creates our first class. I'm going to close down these other values here because these are from the other project we had going on, which is lesson 1. We're into lesson 2 today, right? So we got Thursday, today's date, right? And inside Thursday, we're going to create a hero class, right, that we're going to make right now. So let's do that. So if you think about a hero class, and again, hint, hint, there might be some of this kind of stuff on a test. We're going to do some testing too as we go, right? Some of it's going to be, I'm going to probably be asking you for, here's the class that I want you to design for the test, as an example. And here are the methods, and here are the properties or fields or whatever. Put this together, and this is the output that I'm expecting you to kind of come up with, right? So you're going to get this kind of test. And also, you might have, which I will show you, some multiple choice questions that you'll answer as we go forward, right? There might be some multiple choice to come up and say, a class, when you inherit this, whatever has this. I'm going to be sharing that with you on these live polls, because we're going to do that at the break. I'm going to kind of come up with a few questions. 2 or 3 kind of questions. I'll throw them up, and those questions that I pull up on the live poll, I'm going to be using those questions on your tests. So if you're here in class, and if you look at the videos, and you're whatever, you're going to get the same questions I'm going to put on the darn tests right here in class that you'll be able to look at. Preview, right? If you don't attend class and you don't watch the videos and you just read the text, if that, right, and you try and do an exam, good luck to you. It's just too much, right? Okay, so we got our class Thursday, which is, you can call this whatever you want. It's really the project class, the main class for today. What if I wanted to refactor this thing? I don't want it to be called Thursday. I called it Thursday on purpose because I want to rename it. What do I do to rename it? Does anyone know?
There's an option called refactor.
All right, so I want to refactor. So I want to refactor this thing. I go into, I scroll down. It says I can refactor and I can rename. And when I do that, it brings up a thing that says, instead of my name being Thursday, let's call this today's called a project. We'll call it project today, because it's a project class, right? And it says update the references, update similarly named variables and methods, update textual occurrences and comments and strings if we want to. We don't need to do any of that stuff. Okay, I press OK, I press finish. And now it's not only renamed here in my default package, but it's also renamed here in my preview. Okay, this class doesn't do anything right now. It's just a stub for everything else we're going to put into it. Okay. Well, this is where I'm going to instantiate all my objects from the hero class, but we need to create the hero class. So let's do that. So I'm going to go into my source file, right-click, new, class, just like we did last time. And this time, the name is going to be called hero with a capital H, right? And now if you notice, the hero is still going to be based off the Java lang object. I don't need a static void main because that doesn't make any sense for my hero class, right? I'm going to press finish. So this is all I get when I do my public class, which is hero, right? I have these brackets. I could have done this manually, by the way, too, right? But the idea here is that we want to use the IDE for everything that it gives us, right? Okay, well, the hero class needs a constructor. Let's do this again, right? I'm going to do this over and over again for you guys, just like we did in our web class. I'm going to keep bugging you until you tell me what to do, right? So that way, when it comes down to asking you to do stuff on a test, you know, you're not going to go, I don't remember, I can't do it, right? All right, so remember what we do. So how do we create our constructor for the hero class? What do we put in there? What's the constructor? How do we name it? Public hero, right? With the same name, basically, as we do with the that we do for the actual class itself. We also need some braces, right? Now the hero, this is an empty constructor for the hero, right? Could I instantiate this hero right now? It's a yes or no question. Yes, the answer is yes, I could. Would he do anything? Would the hero do anything? No. Okay, well, we need to define a couple things. Above the hero class, I want to define some properties, right? So let's think about some properties that all heroes would have, right? What's that? Flying. Okay, that's like a power, right? Not every hero has that power.
Okay. Awesome ripped bodies, tight.
Maybe some strength. I like strength. Strength is a good one. So we'll say, now strength is going to be lowercase,
Because
right?
it's a defined function.
Because it's a property. And if I define this as a property, again, I'm gonna try and get you to do it. I want to make strength a number between 1 and 100. 1 and 100. How do I do that? How do I define it as an integer? So I go int first, like this, right? And do I have to, is that how you define an integer? Or is it strength and then int afterwards? Tell me. I want you to tell me. Is it integer? Huh? Is that what I have to do, like this? Do I have to put a semicolon? Okay, good. So I got my strength. Let's add a couple other ones. So I've got my strength. What are the things that heroes do? They're heroes, right? Speed. I like speed. Okay. What other things can heroes do? Let's add a couple things that all heroes have. Everybody. Was that intelligence? Some heroes have intelligence, but not all, right? Some heroes are smart, but most of them have a strength, a speed. How about a
Heroes and, like,
was that?
courage, heroes.
how about a health? They have a health, right? You know, if we're making a hero, right?
People have health.
Right? People have health. Heroes have health, right? Right. What other things do the heroes have? They have speed. They have health. They have strength. You know, these are some properties that they have, and they can also do a few things, right? Heroes can fight, right? So let's put that in there like this. We're saying we're going to make a public function, right, called fight, lowercase, right? And when heroes fight, they do something. What do they do when they fight? They do something. How come I'm getting an error? Right? Am I returning anything with my my thing? Now, if you notice, it says there's a couple of quick fixes. One is set the method return type to void. Another one is change to constructor. We don't want to change to constructor. This is the right one, and we add it in. And that's what, again, there's some really cool quick fixes that we can do with Eclipse. Okay, so we got it fights. And when we're actually, think of what we're doing here, we're prototyping. We're creating a blueprint for all heroes, right? Remember, today is all about inheritance. Okay, we're going to make a villain from the hero too, right? So let's think about things, because villains can fight, villains have strength, villains have speed, right? They have all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so let's keep going. So what else? So they can fight, public void. What else? What other things can heroes do? What other actions can heroes take? They can save people. No, flying is a power, man. Some heroes have it, and some heroes don't. So that would be like a special hero, a flying hero, right? And some people are super strong. Super strength would be a power, right? So everyone has strength. They all have some measure of strength, some speed, some health, but they're not all super strong. That would be a specialized kind of hero. So they can fight. Maybe they can save people, right? They try and save people, or they run. Maybe they run. They can run, right? And they can jump. They can do these things that regular heroes can do. Run, they can fight, they can jump, right? They can talk, smash, you know, all these things they can do. So let's just say they can run. Okay, well, these are the things they can do, right? And you know what? The hero's probably going to have a name. So that's going to definitely be a string, right? And if you notice, there's two ways I can do this. Capital S and lowercase s, right? Lowercase string, and then the name. So he's got a name, right? And if you notice my string, if I right-click or if I hover over it, it's going to say, maybe you don't want to use string. It says create class string. I don't have a class string. Or maybe I want to use string, the capital string, if I can't remember how to do it, which is what I want. Yeah, I don't want to use that. Right? But it gives you some fixes, quick fixes, right? Which is what you want to look at, right? So string name, I definitely want that. I want a name. And maybe I don't care so much about the age or whatever, but the name's got to be cool, right? We have to have a cool name for the hero, right? So, and we want to kind of put the name for the hero in as we create the hero. So we create the hero, we instantiate the hero. The hero's name should come into the constructor, no? Okay. So we're going to ask you, listen for the name. So string name. Right? So we're listening for the string, name as a string, right? And then we want to assign it to our name, right? Now remember, these properties here, they're all public. Right now, without putting anything in here, actually, the default, is it public or private? Public, right? Let's explicitly say that. So let's just say public in front of all these things for now. You may not need to do that though, right? Do we really need to have everything public? And should we set things like as, because we can access them completely here with public. We can do, maybe all we need to do is get them, like create getters for them, right? So for now, we'll leave them as public, and maybe later on we'll create like read-only getters, no setters. So you shouldn't be able to set your hero's stats. We should be able to generate the hero, right? And if that's the case, if we're creating the hero, maybe we need a utility function to generate his abilities. So maybe we'll create that function down here. So public, maybe we'll make this a private one, right? Private void, and then we'll call it generate abilities. Okay, for now. What's that?
Is this like you have a whole bunch of names and abilities and it randomizes them?
I'm going to randomize them for you, yeah. We're going to do that together, just because, right? So obviously, you know, we haven't done this, but as soon as the hero's instantiated, we want to say we use the this keyword, this dot name, which we can, right, is equal to name. We can do that, you know? What it means is the name, I'm using the same name on purpose, the name that's coming into the constructor is coming into the property, our property name. We're setting the name here. I can do that here in the constructor, or we can use a setter, right, in order for us to set the name of the hero after we've instantiated him. To me, it's more natural for us to set the name as we construct the hero, right? But maybe I don't want to be able to set his strength, his speed, and his health. Those things should be generated, right? Like a random guy, right?
That's so cool.
So if that's cool, if that's true, if I right-click on him and if I want to refactor, right, I can do a couple things. First of all, do I want to make this? I'm wondering if I can do it here.
Where exactly do you right click?
I'll write on him, or on the name, right? There's a hero on type hierarchy. But I don't really want to do that. Like this is the name that I want to redo this one, right? I want to create a. If I go quick fix, it says I can rename in the workspace, or I can create a getter and setter for strength, right? I need a getter, but I don't want a setter. I never want name to be set, or my strength to be set from outside. So I want to use this stub, right? And get strength and set strength. I'll create the set strength, but I'll delete it after. So I don't need to use that right now. So then I'll press OK and let it be done. I don't see it. Anywhere that want to come and look?
No, it'll be right there. It's right in the
I don't see it anywhere here. Would you have put it somewhere?
It's all right. It should be larger than life there. Thanks
Yeah,
a lot.
I apologize. Sorry about that. A little bit of an interruption. So it created our getter and setter, right? Where would it get? It did it down here, right? Here's our get strength and set strength. I like to put my getter and setters up at the top, right, myself. So I'm going to kind of cut this out, right? This is the great thing. It helps me program, right? And I'm going to kind of put it down here, right? Here's my getter and my setter. I don't want to set strength ever, so this is going to be gone. So what have I done? I've made it so that this get strength is a read-only property, right? Because I don't have a setter. My setting is going to happen through my generating abilities. And if you notice, automatically it became private, right? The name, the axis modifier for my strength became private, which means it's not accessible outside of my class, right? I want to do the same thing from speed and health. So we'll do the same thing. I'll say quick fix. And if you notice, there's a command 1. I believe it's a control 1 on your PC, right? So here's command 1. And, oh, sorry. I gotta focus on the right thing. So command 1, it says getter and setter for speed, right?
Really doing it.
And I'll do the same thing for this, getter and setter for health. I'm just going to accept the defaults here. And I'm going to put in a getter and setter section, right? Getter section, right? These are all my getters, right?
You're getting rid of all the setters, right?
I'm getting rid of all the setters because I want to make them read-only properties, right? So I don't need to set health. I don't need that one. And I definitely don't need set speed. I never want to set the speed of my hero. My hero is going to be able to, those abilities will be generated, right? So here's where I have it. So I'm going to cut these out. And underneath my setters, in order, which is the right thing to do, I'm going to have my strength, my speed, my health, all that stuff. I have getters for all these things. And the only thing that's public right now is my name. And I don't even have to even make that public. But for now, let's leave it the way it is, right? Which means I could probably change my name later on, right?
Just scroll down a little bit.
Sure. Okay, so here's my hero, my name. I definitely, in the constructor, when the hero is constructed, I want to call my generate abilities method, right? I want to call my generate abilities method if I've done it correctly. Typing errors, Tom. So that means like as soon as the hero is created, here's my constructor, and I want to kind of highlight that this is my constructor, right? Here's my constructor. Whenever I do this kind of thing, you'll see sometimes I put extra kind of comments in there. I kind of put a comment block, right? Because I want to show that this is my constructor. So when I go down, I want to see a preview of my class. I can go down, oh, there's my constructor, right? And then here, I want to talk about, I want to break up my code to show, here are all my private methods, right? This is just, you know, kind of coding that I use. Everyone's a little different, right? And if I have any public methods, like the getters, these are my getters, they're public methods, I can just simply say getters. Because getters are all the same. They're all kind of grouped together, right? And that way I can always change them. And they're next to all of my properties for the class, right? So these are my private properties, right? Here's my privates. And I have one public property, which is so far a string. I know I'm being crazy here when I'm doing this stuff, but I want you to follow along for a reason. By the way, we're going to do the same thing for the other class with JavaScript. All the same stuff we're doing right here, except you're doing it in a different way. Okay, so we got a private properties, public properties, and some getters. And then if you scroll down, you're going to see it's very simple. We've got a constructor. Then we've got our private methods, which don't do anything right now. We have a fight and run method. And we have a generate abilities method. Okay, this is a good space. We've kind of put together our template for our class. Class isn't completed yet. And it's a good time to connect with GitHub, right? So what I want to do is I want to click on my project and go down to team. I'm waiting for you. Right? And I'm going to go share project. Team, share project. I've clicked on the actual project name itself. Right? Now, if you haven't downloaded eGit for the new people, right? Because I know, and if you don't have your laptop here, and you haven't downloaded eGit, Git does exist with the machine in front of you, but eGit is a little Eclipse plugin that you can use to enhance your connection with Git, right? It's called eGit, E-G-I-T. Yeah. Okay, so now you do your share project. I've already got eGit. And it tells me what do I want, CVS or Git. I want obviously Git. And it tells me what's my local repository. I can choose my repository as Git. That's my latest Git repository. And my working directory is the same, right? So this is cool. I'm going to go, if I say finish, because this is use or create repository and parent folder of the project. I could do that too, but I'm just using a regular one. If I don't have this, I could click create, right, to create a new Git repository locally for my files, right? So if this space is blank, and if you pull down here and there's nothing, you could use the create button to create your own, right? And I'm using a very simple user Thomas Git repository for my repository. Okay. Now, if you notice, there's a project that I'm trying to sync up here. It's COMP1011-lesson02, which is the one we're working with, right? And if I press finish, right now it looks like I have a couple of commits to make, and it looks like if I go to team and if I say commit, I can choose which ones I want to commit. So these are all the different ones. Now I have another project in the path as well. I have a lesson 1 change that I can commit, but I want to just commit the ones for lesson 2. So I can just choose these ones as part of my commit in this particular case. And in my commit message, I'm going to say created basic hero class, right? And then you can go as complex as you want, right? So this is taken care of. But look what's happened. Because I created a previous folder for my Git repository, look, here's my Git master git as 3, I've got both this one and this one. There's 2 different commits. And because I previously had a git repository here, right, as an example, it's messed me up. So I've messed up somehow. How do I fix it? Okay, so I'm going to go down to team, right, and I can choose my remote, right? It says configure push to upstream. I can do that. I can do that. I can rebase. I can do that too. I can also disconnect, which is probably what I want to do. So here I am disconnecting. This one still has my 3 commits, right? This one is disconnected from my team. I'm going to go do this again. Right-click disconnect.
Oh, okay.
Go to team disconnect. I just did that because I want to show you guys when you make a mistake what happens, because I made a mistake, right? Here's a share project again. Git, next, I'll show it to you one more time. Right now, if it says use or create a repository in the parent folder, right? And if you notice, now, because I've done that, let me just go do that again. I have an issue because I don't have my repository, right? If I press finish now, right, and I can't switch my repository, right, but it says use or create repository in parent folder, right? If I unclick this, it's going to show me my repository, which I can choose, right? Or I can create a new one, which is what I really want to do. So when I create a new one, instead of Thomas Git whatever, I can browse to the place I want it. In this particular case, I'm going to browse to my course documents. You can browse somewhere else, right, for you, obviously. My advanced Java, I'm going to go to lessons. I'm going to go to lesson 2, and I'm going to create a new folder called Code Archive, just like I did on the Visual Studio side. And we did that last time. Press open and finish, and now I've got my new Git repository that's separate from the other one, right?
Is it possible to change the path of the Git later on?
It is and it isn't. If you notice now, right, it says use or create repository in parent folder of project. This is cool for this. I've created a new repository. That's good. Here's my working directory, right? But if you notice, my project files aren't linked to this thing anymore, right? I don't have anything in here. And if I choose this and press finish, that's not what I want, right? So I'm kind of messed up because I can't go finish. Look, I can go back. I've created a repository. I can go back, but I can't choose finish, right? And this is the problem that you'll have if you mess up with Git. So you've got, but it's fixable, right? Again, the challenge is we can go into our properties for the project itself, right? And each project has its own properties, and you can try and do it this way. The challenge here is that even from a team sharing perspective, you're going to run into an issue, right? So it doesn't really matter is what I'm saying. If I go here and I go to team and I go to show local history for this one, it's going to show that today in my local repository, even though I'm not connected, I'm disconnected, right? I've done an update as of 3:28 p.m., right? But I shouldn't have a repository here at all. I should be able to go to team, and I can't share here. I can just do a local history for each file. I should be able to disconnect. I should be able to stop what I'm doing, right? And I can't. I cannot, right? Here I am, team, share project, and once I've done it one time, this is what I want to show you. Once you mess up, you're messed up for good. Now, one good thing is, if you notice here, if I go to team commit, right? My files aren't part of this thing. Look, I have nothing to commit because I haven't made any changes. So let's just test this out. I'm going to make a change to my hero class, right? And you can make a change to your hero class as well, right? We want to generate our abilities now. In my generate abilities, so we can move on. And this is part of, we're building our class first, and then we're going to inherit from it. Okay, this is the whole idea here. That's what we're doing today with inheritance. Okay. How do I create a random number? Who remembers how? You guys have done this, yeah? Just like JavaScript, right? Math and is built in, right? So if I start typing math dot and I sit there and I look at random, right? It says returns a double value with a positive sign greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1, which is our standard JavaScript or Java random number generator. And by the way, I don't know if you guys know the history of Java and JavaScript, why they're called Java and JavaScript, but Java or JavaScript actually was called LiveScript before, which is actually a better name, right? LiveScript. And what ended up happening was someone funky, who were the people who were developing JavaScript at the time, this Java language was coming out. And it was becoming very, very popular, right? That was a full-fledged application development language, whereas JavaScript wasn't. It was a scripting language. So someone got the funny idea to say, hey, let's rename LiveScript to JavaScript. And that's how it came about. And that's why people get confused with Java and JavaScript being the same. And they're so different. They're totally 100% different. One is a loosely typed language, and the other one is a very strict language. Java is a very strict language that you can do lots of little things with. So, okay, I've built my math random, but if you remember how it does it, math random is not enough. I mean, this is just generating a random number between 0 and 1, right? So I've got to multiply this thing by the number that I want to generate, and I want to assign it. I want to assign this thing to a random number. So, for example, I want to be able to generate each of my abilities. Right now, I have strength, speed, health that I can generate. So I have 3 abilities, right? So I want to run this thing 3 times. So there's a couple ways we can do this. One, I can run an array, and I can generate my abilities in an array, and then afterwards assign them, right, to my properties. I could do that, but that's really silly, right? Or I can just generate the numbers 3 times, right? I could run it in a loop, but there's no loop necessary, because each individual one is going to be hit 1 time, right? So I'm not going to generate my abilities more than once. So in this particular case, I might as well just do something like this. This dot strength, right, is equal a number of math. We should probably round, eh? What's the yeah, there is no. Probably have to round this down first. So round. I probably want to round this down to a floating point number, right? And it says I want to round something. I want to round it to the nearest integer, right? How do I convert the number that I'm going to get into an integer instead of rounding? Maybe I want to parse it or in some way. Could I do that? Who remembers how to do that? How to convert a floating point? So I'm going to get a floating point number or a double, right?
Put it in brackets, right, on the left side.
Casting?
Yeah.
I'm going to cast, right? So in other words, I would do something like this. Int, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And then from there, I would say math.random, right? And then multiplied by 100, right? And maybe plus 1. My guess? Does that make sense? So I'm casting it as an integer. So I'm saying whatever it is, if it's from 0 to 100, I'm going to make sure that it becomes an integer at the end of the day. I'm going to cut off all the significant digits that I'm going to get. I'm going to make it into an integer value, right? Well, I can do this again and again. I just need to change, instead of this dot strength, by the way, this is a silly class, but just bear with me. Instead of strength, obviously I don't want to do strength all the time. It's got to be speed and health. So here's speed. And my health also is going to be 1 in 100 for now. So I could be weak, like, you know, someone who's got a 1 health with 100 strength. Or I could be a guy who's got, so we're gonna modify that later on. But for now, let's just say strength, speed, and health, they're random numbers, right? You know what? I think we need some kind of display utility method, a private method that displays it, but it's got to be a public method that displays my abilities. So I think I'm going to make it here. I'm going to call it public void. I'm going to show abilities just for testing purposes for now, right? And in there, I want to do a console dot or system.out.println. Sorry. And I want to do my ability scores, right? So each of my abilities. So my strength. So it's going to happen when I want to, not automatically. My strength, and then plus whatever it is. So strength, this dot strength, right? And let's do the same thing for, might as well just copy and paste here, for my speed and my health. Yeah? Make sense? Okay, maybe I'll add a little dividing line. How about that? Just to spruce it up some. So I'll take this away, and I'll make it like something like a bunch of pluses. Just to make, because we're just doing a console, right? That's all we're doing right now. There's nothing else that's coming out. Just a bunch of stuff in the console, right? So strength, speed, and health. It's going to do a little printout for us, right? That makes sense. I'm going to do a nice save all. Yeah. And oh man, it's back. Now that's it. It's my third commit. I'm going to make another commit on this thing. Why? Because I'm connected to the other thing, right? I haven't disconnected from my previous class, GitHub repository, right? And I can't disconnect. I'll show you how we can eventually, but for now, just bear with me. All right, so strength, speed, and health. I've got my show abilities. It's a public method. And what I'm going to do here, I've got to basically go like this. I'll say public methods, right? I'm going to kind of use my commenting style. This is my own commenting style, right? So I know what it's like. You can make your own commenting style, but you should comment your code. Now, so we get quite a few lines here. We get like 50 plus lines of code, and our fight and run, let's fill those in. So when my hero fights, right? For now, because he's going to fight the villain eventually, right? We want him to just say that he's fighting. Hero's fighting. Right? So system.out.println, and I'm just going to turn this into the hero is fighting. Actually, we'll say the name, right? The name of the hero, right? This dot name plus, right? And maybe a space is fighting, right? That makes sense. And the same thing with running. He's running. So maybe he's going to run away, right? Because sometimes the hero's tough. He's got to live to fight another day. Right? Simple, silly classes and methods, right? But the idea here is for demonstration, right? To understand how things work. When we put together an application, it's the same idea. By the way, the stuff we're building today, the stuff we're going to build for the next few weeks, are the building blocks for what we're going to do when we build our Android applications in the second half, right? So if you don't know how to do this simple, silly stuff now, when it comes to building Android applications, you're going to pull your hair out if you have any. Or your beard. You're going to pull your beard out. Right?
Hair is a sensitive topic.
Hey man, I'm telling you, for all of us, okay? For all of us, buddy. All right? We all want to pull our hair out, right? So at the end of the day, then we won't be able to pick up girls and get 10 marks, like our friend Matt over there. Right? I'm just going with what you said, man. I'm being recorded live on YouTube here, so you know they can hold it against me, right? I don't. But no, that's not what we want to do, wife. Let's go back. So we've got our public methods, we've got our private methods, we've got our pieces in the right places. They don't do a lot right now, but again, we have a base code, a code base that we can use, that we can create our subclass, right? I'm just going to save everything again. Again, if I want to make a commit, and I should make a commit, by the way. And by the way, when I do this, you're going to see that it only is going to target my lesson 2. This stuff isn't targeted. I'm going to say updated the hero class.
I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
to do this again in the break because I'm pretty sure.
We'll do it again and again. We'll do it 10 times. Don't worry. It's not the first and the last time we're ever going to do it, right? But I'm happy you're asking because we should all know how to connect to GitHub. Even when I make mistakes like this, it's okay, right? I want to push it to GitHub now. It's a different story. I go to team, First, I'm going to fetch. I'm going to fetch from upstream. That's the first thing I want to do to make sure there's any changes. Nothing. There's no changes. And now I'm going to go to team, and I'm going to push upstream, or once I know you won't have it because you have to get egit. Remember the egit plugin, which we'll talk about in a second. All right, so it kind of sent it up upstream, right? It says everything was good, but here's the problem, right? Here's the repository it sent it to, COMP1011 lesson 1 git, right? So if I go back to my repository, my Git repository here, and I go back to comp, because I forgot, I didn't do it right, that's why, it's my fault. And if I go back here, I have 2 lessons here, lesson 1 and lesson 2, and both of them here are here. And if you notice, here's all my stuff for my super class, my crazy hero class, and my project. Okay, so there's both those things in here. All right, so we're going to pause the movie here because I wanted to kind of take you through that exercise one more time, right? I know this is like almost a repeat of last week, but we haven't seen that enough. I'm not comfortable telling you that we're going to build some more stuff in an object-oriented fashion without showing you it again and again. And it's okay we take our time with this stuff because you need to know object-oriented programming in Java, or else we're going to get to a point where you're going to lock up and won't be able to do the more advanced stuff. Okay, so we're just going to pause this one.